I have had a very stressful week. Uh, all I have to say is when you go on an elimination diet, you got to be careful because if you're severely allergic like I am, you can go into anaphylactic shock. And I have figured out that I have severe yeast and mold allergy. I have severe salicylate intolerance. I have moderate multiple chemical sensitivities, and I'm too scared. I've been eating gluten free for the past couple of years, and I'm too scared to test that right now. My experiences this week have not been pleasant. I when I went up to 140 pounds, I just wanted to lose weight because it was better for my health, and so I decided to try Dr. Eric Berg's diet. He's a chiropractor out of Virginia. And I took his test and I came out the adrenal type, which means he says the adrenal type, you will tend to gain, your abdomen when you gain, it kind of sags down. And he said that your weight gain is caused because your body's under stress. And I thought, you know what? My body has been under stress because um, the yeast infection was systemic through my whole body. And this yeast is the worst yeast out there. Dr. Philip Brandheim in Seattle, when he tested me for yeast, he said, Gail, you have candidiasis. Not only do you have Candida albicans, he said, you've got some other, I forget what their names were, but he said they are the worst, most resistant yeast in existence. And he says, you're infected with those too. So he put me on some yeast killing medication, and apparently he wasn't up on the latest with this yeast. We learned later that this particular yeast eats its own poop, which means if you kill it, it explodes yeast toxin into the surrounding tissue, which feeds any remaining yeast, and then they multiply like crazy. So by killing it, you fertilize the remaining yeast, so you can never get rid of it. That's why when I would take yeast-killing medication like Nystat or Deflucan or whatever they put me on, it felt like my body was in a stalemate with the yeast, and like sometimes I'd be winning, sometimes the yeast would be winning. So I went on the Candida diet, no refined carbs, no mushrooms, no vinegars, all that sort of stuff, and nothing worked. It was like it was like me and the yeast were constantly at a stalemate. I was keeping it from multiplying super super rapidly. Like if I was eating the fruits and the sugars and feeding it, then it would have been worse. But it seemed like I couldn't get rid of it. I mean, I've had this yeast problem like almost my entire life. I actually believe I've had it since my 20s. The Jesuits gave it to me. So finally, I came to the conclusion I'm never going to get rid of this. Oh, here's what I look like right now. I'm about 133, 132. This is the evening, so I tend to be a little bloated in the evening. So this is I'm not really worried about my weight anymore. I'm down to 132, 133, which is a perfectly fine weight for 5'7". Now I want to be able to eat. Let me tell you what happened. So I decided that the only way to get rid of the yeast, I figured out it was eating its own poop. So I said, you got to flush the germ out without killing it. That way it won't explode and release its toxins. The problem is by the time I figured this out, this infection had already gone systemic through my whole body. I was getting symptoms everywhere, swollen liver, heart arrhythmias, heart palpitations. It was affecting my liver, my gallbladder, my kidneys. I had to use I still have a problem with that because of you. And then the doctor, Phil Ranham, said, not only that, you have developed an allergy to the yeast toxin. We need to desensitize you, which is terrible because yeast lives naturally in the body. So, and let me tell you, that's the reason I'm so messed up right now. Okay, so Jesus created Seroquel just for me. It's the perfect medication to be on if you have the most resistant yeast out there, which is the one I have or had. And it went systemic through the whole body. In fact, it infected me from my brain down to my foot. I mean, everything got infected. My nervous system got infected. My muscles got infected. Everything got infected. Every system of the body got infected. And when this yeast goes systemic, it has a 60% mortality rate. And let me tell you, if I wasn't so smart in medicine, and if I wasn't following the yeast control diet, and if I wasn't, uh, I had to stay away from antibiotics. I couldn't take any steroids. Those things just made me feel like I was going to die. So, like if I got a sore throat and went on antibiotics, by the second day I had to abandon the treatment. I couldn't take it anymore. The yeast would just get worse and worse. So finally, I started going to see an acupuncture doctor, and she put me on treatment to flush the yeast out of my body. She put me in a chamber where I breathed in oxygen. That didn't really help. Nothing worked. Nothing worked. We would try to flush it out. The problem is the yeast toxin was so entrenched throughout my body that the yeast had food everywhere, and they were very happy, and I was on my way to the grave. Then Jesus put me on Seroquel, and he started healing me. And then the yeast infection, I believe, is now under control. But because it was so systemic and throughout every system in my body, it took several years for the Seroquel to remove most of the yeast toxin from all the cells in my body. And in the process, because I became very allergic to the yeast toxin, my body was like an allergy shock. It's like, so Seroquel was removing the yeast toxin, putting it into my blood so it could flush it out through the kidneys, putting it into my bowels so it could go out through the bowels. And my body was trying everything to get rid of the yeast. And in the process, I was exposed. It was going into my blood to be flushed out my kidneys. And I was getting really congested at night. But I said, let's keep taking the Seroquel. We got to get rid of this yeast or it's going to kill me. And in the process, I became highly allergic. All my allergies got worse because the treatment, the fix for the yeast to flush it out without killing it, and since the toxin was entrenched throughout my whole body, my body was protecting me by putting the yeast toxin inside, I guess encapsulating it in cells and keeping it out of the bloodstream. But Seroquel was taking the yeast toxin out of my cells, putting it into the bloodstream so that my body could flush it out through the kidneys. And in the process, my body got really hyped up. I am very allergic to yeast. And, it's a terrible situation to be in, to have a systemic infection when you're allergic to the germ, basically. And the only way, and you can't kill the germ because it feeds, if you try to kill it, it feeds on its own poop. So you can see what happened. That's why I became so allergic. So the good news is the yeast infection is pretty much gone. The Seroquel has successfully removed most of the yeast toxin from my cells and most of the yeast. Bad news is the cure made my allergies worse. So now I have a severe, any allergy I had before I went on Seroquel is now about 10 times worse. Now, Jesus ordered me to go for a walk, and I believe he was actually giving me allergy shots through my walk. And if I hadn't been doing that, I'd probably be so sick right now, I wouldn't be able to eat anything. I'd be on an IV. Let me tell you what I've discovered. Anyways, this is the weight I lost. Most of my weight gain was allergy inflammation. And I still have inflammation going on because I still haven't removed, because I'm so allergic right now. So most of the weight gain was allergy, inflammation, and as you can see, the weight, I lost about 4 inches in my waist in the past couple weeks. And my weight has gone down from about 100 in the past months, from about 139 to 132 to 133. And this is all because I'm dealing with the allergies now. My body's starting to feel a little bit more rested. Before it was all hyped up. It's like, when you're allergic to a food, you crave it, so you eat it. So I was picking out things like pineapple, oranges, very high in salicylates. And that's why I went up to 140 pounds. Allergic inflammation. Inflammation will make you gain weight. So, to make a long story short, I have created a website that details my journey to wellness. At first, it started off So I have a lot of links from Dr. Eric Berg, and I think he's got a very good program if you want to lose weight, and he might work for some people. At least now I know why it was I gained weight when I exercised too much and stressed my body out. My body's already stressed out because of allergies. So the best exercise for me is a walk, a nice, relaxing walk, like Jesus wanted me to do. And if I overdo my waist exercises, I gain weight. So I need to stay relaxed. My body's just so stressed out because of allergies. I try to calm myself. And then I went to Dr. Joseph Mercola, and I have a lot of his links at my website, so you want to check him out. I took his test and found that I'm the mixed type, which means I need to eat about half protein, half carbohydrates. He considers vegetables carbohydrates. So I did that for a while, and he recommends a quarter of the meal be oils. And here's where I got really bloated. I thought, oh, his diet's not working for me because I'm allergic to something I'm eating. I found out I'm allergic to just about every food out there. And I've actually created a list. It's called Safe Foods. If you go towards the bottom of my website, towards like the right-hand side, there's a link called Safe Foods. In fact, I'll have that link underneath this website. That's all I can eat. I have got a severe salicylate intolerance. About all I can eat. It's like I can almost count them on 2 hands. Actually, there might be only 30 foods that I can eat right now. If I eat anything else, it's dangerous. I was feeling so crappy. I said, I don't even care if I get fat anymore. But the problem is, I've been taking my vitals every morning. I've noticed when I ingest something allergenic, my blood pressure goes down, usually below 100. Like it'll be like 95 over 55, which is a little low. That means something's not right sometimes. And that's the beginning of an allergic reaction. In fact, when somebody goes into anaphylactic shock, their blood pressure really dips. So that's what my body is. So when my blood pressure goes down, I think, uh-oh, I must have ingested something I'm allergic to. And I've noticed when I ingest an allergenic substance, my pulse goes way up. Like 2 years ago, my average pulse was 95. And I just lived with it. What it was all the yeast toxin in my body was taken out. The good news is that my pulse, now my average pulse is around 72. And so on good days, it actually goes down to 60. It has nothing to do with my emotional stress. It all has to do with whether I ingested an allergen. That determines my pulse rate. So I've had days where my pulse was 60. And I did nothing different than I wasn't thinking or feeling any different than any other day. It's not emotional with me. It's more physical. It's allergy. So please, if you are allergic to aspirin, and if you, I just took the Seroquel. Seroquel always makes me stuffy. I've had to change my antihistamine. I was allergic to my antihistamine. I'm going to try this one. It seems to have the least offensive fillers. They used lactose monohydrate. I've discovered I have milk allergy. At first, when I discovered I had yeast allergy, I thought, oh, I can just take milk just so long as it's not fermented because I have yeast allergy. So I tried milk. I got an asthma attack. Oh my God, no milk. So, oh my God, I thought, you have an allergy to milk, girl. So I'm avoiding all dairy now, just all. So anyways, if you're allergic to milk, I have a strong milk allergy. If you have a yeast infection that won't go away, like you've had it for years and years, you need to visit my website. I am sharing my journey to wellness. Today, I feel better than I've felt in like a week. I thought I was going to die on some days. It was like, oh, what? I would wake up and think, oh, Lord, I know you're good, but what can I eat? Anyways, I found about 30 or 40 foods I can eat. I get some symptoms with them, but at least I can eat. I feel like a cancer patient. I'm alive. Even if I don't like my life completely, and I may not, I'm alive. And I'm starting to feel better. Check out my website if you have my problems.